Dear students, a very good day to all of you. Today we are going to talk on amphibians. In the first part, we will discuss about the origin and evolution of amphibians as well as their parental care. In the second part, we will discuss about the classification of these animals. About 360 million years ago, amphibian became the first vertebrate to live on land. The name amphibian comes from the Greek word meaning double and life and reflects the fact that many amphibians spend part of their life on land and part in water. The first amphibians to spend a significant part of their life on land most likely evolved from lobe-finned fishes. Lobe-finned fishes had several pre-adaptations that allowed them to transition to life on land. Pre-adaptations are adaptations in an ancestral group that allow a shift to new functions, which are later favored by natural selection. Lobe-finned fishes ancestral to amphibians had a bone structure within their fins that worked as legs that could walk on land. Ancient lobe-finned fishes also had modified pouches in their digestive tracts, which evolved into the lungs of lungfishes and swim bladders in most modern fishes. Some groups of Asian lobe-finned fishes also had internal nostrils that functioned in air breathing. In lobe-finned fishes ancestral to amphibians, these structures worked as a means of breathing on land. Early amphibians required more oxygen than their fish ancestral, as gravity makes movement on land more difficult than movement in water. Early amphibians were likely to have had a higher metabolism than their fish ancestral. As a result, efficient hearts were an important adaptation that allowed oxygen to be delivered to the body more efficiently. Characteristics of early amphibians. Amphibians and lobe-finned fishes share many anatomical similarities, including features of the skull and vertebral column. Also, the bones in the fin of a lobe-finned fish are similar in shape and position to the bone in the limb of an amphibian. Sarcopterygian, an extinct lobe-finned fish that is thought to be closely related to amphibians. This fish probably lived in shallow water and used its sturdy pelvic and pectoral fins to move along the bottom and to support its body while resting. The oldest known amphibian fossils date from about 360 million years ago. All of the early amphibians had 4 strong limbs, which developed from the fins of their fish ancestral. The 4 limbs of amphibians and all other terrestrial vertebrates are homologous to the pectoral fins of fishes, and the hind limbs are homologous to the pelvic fins. The early amphibians also breathe air with lungs. Lungs arose early in the history of fishes and are found in the descendants of their early fishes, including terrestrial vertebrates. Although the early amphibians showed several adaptations for life on land, such as sense organs for detection airborne scents and sounds, they probably spent most of their time in the water. For example, some of their first amphibians had a large tail fin and lateral line canals on their head. Their teeth were large and sharp, indicating a diet of fish, not insects. In addition, some of the early amphibians appear to have had gills like those of fishes. Diversification of amphibians. During the late Devonian period and the Carboniferous period, 359 million to 299 million years ago, amphibians split into 2 main evolutionary lines. One line included the ancestral of modern amphibians and the other line included the ancestral of reptiles. Amphibians have been a diverse, widespread and abundant group since this early diversification. Today, there are about 4,500 species of amphibians belonging to three main orders. The largest order with more than 3,900 species is Anura, which includes the frogs and toads. The order Chordata contains about 400 species of salamanders, and the third order Gymnophiona consists of about 160 species of caecilians, which are legless tropical amphibians. All these animals possess parental care, which is one of the important character of amphibians. Now, we learned parental care in amphibians. Why parental care in amphibia? The amphibians were the pioneer amongst the vertebrates to invade land. On coming to this new environment, they had to face many hostile forces and they had to develop various ways and means to overcome the obstacles. As a result, the reproductive mechanism had undergone extensive modifications. Rearing or care of the offsprings is an achievement in the trend of evolution. It will be unwise to think that the care of young is a mammalian monopoly. The phenomenon of parental care is quite well developed in amphibians, where extreme modification in structure and behavior are observed. Parental care is mostly a modification in the parents to take care of the offsprings, so that with the major number of eggs, continuation of race can be maintained. The eggs are rather small and without protective shell. When the embryo hatches out, it is still very small and must find its own food in water for its further development. Young ones without any one of the parents in tropical regions are opened to many enemies in water like aquatic animals, which mainly inhabit in such area. In such circumstances, it becomes necessary for the care of young and maintenance of eggs which later developed into adults. There are various controversies which have been restored to, by which the young ones are protected during the course of their early stages. The controversies fall into the following heads. In order Anura, first is indirect nurseries. Here, the parents construct nests under the following heads. First, in enclosure in water, the large tree frog, the Hyla faber, protect its progeny by building a basin-shaped nursery in shallow water and at the border of ponds with the aid or help of web defect. The female digs the mud to a length of 3 to 4 inches and construct nest whose diameter varied from 18 to 42 centimeter. Nests were made of muddy clay and occasionally by pushing away moistened leaf litter at the edges of the ponds. Nests were used 0 to 4 times for oviposition. When reused, nests were renovated by the males. Males were observed chasing intruders, making splashing noises by jumping into the water and fighting inside or as far as 2 meters from their nest. The wall of the nest which emerges above the surface of the water. Thus, the egg and early larvae are protected in these called constructed nurseries. The heavy rain destroy the wall of nursery and the larvae go into the water. Second, in hole near water. A Japanese tree frog, Rhecophorus psychigalli, the eggs are laid in a hole on muddy bank of river or pond. The eggs are covered by foamy mucus to prevent desiccations. After polishing the wall of the chamber, the female produces some secretion which is beaten into a froth. The parents make them way out by burrowing the hole, which of course is directed towards the water, so that when the larvae are hatched, they may find their way into the water immediately. The eggs are well protected and aerated by means of air bubbles in the frothy mass surrounding them. Third, leaf nest. In Philomedusa, a South American tree frog, the leaf nest is built by folding the margin of the leaves. Leaf margins are glued together by cloacal secretion. It has an aperture at the base and the nest overhangs watery area. Fourth, in transparent gelatinous bag. The genus Phytomyzagalus biroi from New Guinea lays its eggs in a sausage-shaped shallow transparent membranous bag, which is secreted by the female. The whole development takes place in the bag. The miniature frogs leave the gelatinous bag in the perfect condition. Fifth is on trees and weeds near waters. The eggs are laid on the under surface of leaves, hanging above water in haloids, Triton and Leptodactylus. Triton, the eggs may be fixed with the aquatic weeds by glues. In tropical American genus Triton, Halodes, Genopus and other small tree frogs, eggs are deposited in damp places, under stones, leaves of plants that are near water. The metamorphosis is carried up within the eggs. Second method is direct nursing by parents. First, tadpoles transported from one place to another by males. This condition has been observed in Phylobates and Dendrobates of South American forms. They spawn in water and their tree swimming tadpoles attach themselves to the back of the males by means of their sucker-like lips and flattened abdomen. Thus, the tadpoles are transported from one place to the another when the pond is to dry up. In some form, the tadpoles are transported on the back and concealed under the dead leaves. The major part of the development takes place on the back itself. The second is eggs carried by parents. In different species of the group Amphibia, the eggs are carried from one place to the other by the parents as stated under the following. First, round the legs by the male. Alytes obstetricans show peculiar type of parental care. This type of toad is abundant in France and Italy. One male becomes successful to grasp round the waist of the female. The male in this position massages and lubricates the cloacal region of the female. The female discharges the eggs. The eggs are fertilized by the sperm of the grasping male. After fertilization, the eggs are wrapped round the back of the thigh. When the eggs are ready to hatch, the male carries them to nearest water where the larvae comes out. Second, on the back of the female. First, exposed. In Hyla gueldil, Brazilian tree frog, the female takes in charge of the eggs and carry them along on their back. The eggs are placed by the males on the back of the female skin, which is extended into narrow folds which border and support the egg mass on the sides and suggesting ancient age of dorsal pouches. The young ones leave the egg and emerge out of pouch in perfect condition. Second, on the back of the male. Frog species Ranitomya imitator, the female lays eggs on the surface of a leaf. After the week, the male retains its tadpoles. The tadpole wiggles its back. The male then deposits the tadpole in pool of water. To initiate trophic eggs feeding, the male begins to call from the surface of the pool, and after some time the tadpole's mother arrives. Then the female dives into the pool and deposits a trophic eggs. This process is repeated every 7 days till the tadpole develops. Third, Pupa americana, where the eggs are deposited in pits on the back of females. During breeding season, the dorsal skin of the female becomes soft, spongy and gelatinous. The male places the eggs on the back of the female, where each egg sinks into a small pit. An operculum covers the pit. Development is completed inside the cutaneous pit. The partition between the pits become highly vascularized. The developing larva attains a vascular tail. Physiological exchange of materials between the embryonic and maternal tissues is claimed to occur in these animals. The tadpole larva comes out in 80 days after the deposition of the egg. Third, in common pouches. In the marsupial toad, Nototrema marsupium strathica, a common large pouch is developed on the back of female during breeding season. It is a horseshoe shaped fold of skin in sacral region which gradually deepens to become a sac-like structure. The eggs are filled in these common pouches. The opening of this pouch is small and situated on the posterior part of the back. The development takes place in the pouch and the young ones are escaping from the pouch in the form of only tadpoles. Third, on the belly exposed by the female. In case of Rhacophorus reticulates, Cylonys genera, the female carries eggs on its belly. This bears shallow impressions, which after the removals of eggs are visible. Fourth, in the mouth and gular pouch by the male. Darwin's frog exhibit a unique form of parental care. After mating, the female lays large eggs on the moist ground. The male will remain there until they are ready to hatch. Muscle contraction in young larvae stimulates the father to swallow the eggs. The young are sheltered and developed in their gular pouches, which are simply the modified vocal sacs of the male. These pouches extend over the entire ventral surface at side. In these genera, the eggs are taken into the mouth by the male with the help of hands and then are forced into the gular region. The eggs remain in the vocal sac for about 2 months. About 10 to 15 young ones can get shelter in the gular pouch of a male species. Fifth, by female. In Hylambates, the female carries the eggs in her mouth. The eggs are large and few in number. Sixth, Rheobatrachus, the female gastric brooding frog from Australia, swallows its tadpoles which then develop in the stomach. Second order is Urodela. In Urodela, the fertilization is internal. In such forms, a least care of progeny is taken. But in some newts, the eggs are deposited one by one in a small group attached to the stones. The female folds leaf with her hind limbs so as to afford some protection to eggs. First, in transparent gelatinous bag. In case of Salamandrilla varicillingii, the female deposits its egg in a gelatinous bag on the branch of a plant near water. The larvae, when hatched, are dropped to the bottom of bag and then into the water. Then after metamorphosis takes place. Second, father coils around the eggs. In Cryptobranchus alleganiensis, the eggs contains much yolk are deposited by the females and then after surrounded by the male partner as father. These eggs are connected by a string and whole mass forms a large clump around which the male coils itself. Third, mother carries the eggs on its back. Desmognathus lays its eggs in a rosary-like string. Female takes charge of this rosary by winding it several times around the body and nurses it in a comparatively dry spot. Next, viviparity is observed in Salamander atra. The eggs are placed inside the uterine cavity where the entire tadpole hood is completed. 2 eggs are laid at a time. The larvae remain attached with the uterine wall by membrane which functions physiologically in the manner of a primitive placenta. Third order is Apoda. In this group, fertilization is internal. Breeding habits of Aethiophis glutinosa show the remarkable parental care. The female digs a hole close to the surface in a damped ground near the water. The eggs are deposited there. The eggs are strung together by a mass of thread containing many distinct twisted and formed by vitelline membrane around which the mother coils its body. The larvae appear in a gill-like condition. The species is called Bollenderula titanus. The females transform their outer skin into a thick, nutrient-rich meal for their babies. The young crawl over their mother and fed and lay on the skin. Viviparity is reported in Giginophis caesarei. The viviparous Sicilians that ingest thickened oviduct lining using specialized deciduous teeth. The foregoing description reveals some of the ways by which parental care is seen in the question now is whether this phenomenon of parental care in amphibian has any parallelism with that observed in mammals. The care of young in amphibians evolved probably in response to their habit and their environment they live. The care of eggs or young is largely, if not purely, instinctive in nature rather than anything else. In the first half, we learned about origin and evolution of amphibians, and on the second half, we have seen the special character of amphibians, that is parental care. We have seen how the adult care about their young ones and protect them. We also seen the indirect and direct methods of parental care in amphibians. Thank you.